Hi, you. My name is Yahira Garcia, and I am the Community Engagement and Outreach Specialist Graduate Employee at University Counseling Services. Welcome to the recorded version of our Exam Time Motivation Workshop. My hope is that you will be able to follow along and engage in this interactive workshop, whether you're alone, with your roommate, or maybe with friends, and that you learn some good tips and tricks to keep you motivated through midterms to final exams to any um, other, exam in between. But before we get started with the workshop, I should mention that although I do work at University Counseling Services, that this workshop does not constitute as mental health treatment or therapy, and I encourage you or any of those needing additional support to seek out mental health support through University Counseling Services. You can call us to schedule a same day appointment at 541 346 3227 or go to counseling.uoregon.edu. So now for our workshop, um, I will name that these questions can make you feel like I'm making a generalization for some of you, and that some of you may not feel motivated. If you feel like you have loads of motivation, I'd like you to think about what makes you motivated, what propels you to kind of keep going. But if you're here because you're maybe lacking some motivation, maybe think about why do you need to be motivated, or why are you not feeling motivated right now? I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. Additionally, here's a more optimistic way to think about motivation and maybe what is your driving force for being here. I feel like it's oftentimes easy to lose sight of why we're doing what we're doing. Um, And if you're willing, to kind of think about it, why are you here at UO? Maybe clicking on this workshop in your field of study, in your position. I think going back to basics and identifying what motivates us and why we're doing what we're doing is really helpful. And one of the main sources of lack of motivation for students is burnout. So what causes burnout? Um, do you have any ideas? Maybe you can think about it before I click onto the next slide. Well, if this picture is telling at all, one of the main sources of lack of motivation for college student is actually stress. Now, what is stress? Well, stress is the physiological and psychological response to internal and external events. It's when demand exceeds capacity, and stress can look absolutely different for everyone. Something that I like to remind people of is that stress kind of can be on a sliding scale. This means that a situation might be extremely stressful for one person, but the same situation might not be as stressful or stressful at all to the next person. We're all individuals with different experiences that may play into our perception and our ability to cope with any given situation. So, with that in mind, do you think that stress is good or is it bad? Maybe think about that for a second. Good or bad? Good or bad? Maybe can you think about an instance when stress helped you along, or maybe an instance when stress was maybe not the greatest thing you wanted to feel at that moment? Now, this curve shows how stress can affect our performance. So, this is one of my favorite graphics that I really enjoy presenting on because you can see here it's a pretty great illustration as to how stress works. On your left, in the green section, stress levels are low, but so is performance. When our stress levels are low, we are less productive. In other words, moderate levels of stress can be motivating. And you can see that as the bell curve goes up into the yellow and into the orange of it. You see that when our stress level is at our optimum peak, so is our performance. We're focused, we're motivated, it's healthy, we're getting things done. But as you can see, as the stress level keeps increasing, the bell curve goes from plateauing to going back down again. And the other end is the red on the bottom right hand side where we approach burnout. And this is when levels of stress are so high that our ability to cope has been exceeded and we are much less productive, much less motivated, and we start feeling, those consequences of being, overly stressed, which is, panic or anxiety, anger, exhaustion, fatigue. We start feeling sick, and prolonged stress can lead to chronic disease. So our goal is to increase your resiliency so that you can handle challenging situations without burning out, and learning coping strategies that will hopefully be preventative in um, burning out and actually increasing your motivation. So it's helpful to know when we're feeling burnt out so that we can practice our coping skills. So that leads me to my next question, which is, oh, there you go, a nice little animation. How do you know when you are too stressed or anxious? Think about that for a second. When you feel very overwhelmed, um, what do you feel goes on in your body? I know for me, when I feel really stressed or anxious, I tend to get really irritable. I feel my mood change. Another way that my stress tends to play out is it affects my appetite. I tend to undereat. And that is one way that I know that, oh, something is wrong with me. What is my body telling me? What am I not doing? What am I forgetting to do? What am I putting off? So those are just two examples in how stress and anxiety manifest for me. So just think, how do you know when you're too stressed or anxious again? Is the question. Well, there are different, signs and symptoms. Oftentimes, when we're stressed, it can affect our bodies without us necessarily knowing. And some common ways in which stress manifests are just a stomach ache, headache, dizziness, eye strain, maybe sweaty palms, psychosomatic symptoms. Another thing is that you can have trouble sleeping, whether it's sleeping too much or too little. Something that's out of the usual for you. Stress can also affect the way that we feel. You might be afraid to make decisions. Maybe you feel anxious or tense, or unable to relax. Stress can, like I said, make you feel more irritable. That's how I tend to feel when I'm very overwhelmed. Notice how some of these emotions can also have physical manifestations as well. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it might change the way that you behave. In exaggeration of normal behavior, maybe withdrawing from your support system or even from your responsibilities is another way that stress manifests. Other times we can also work very hard, but we really aren't able to get much done, like we saw in the bottom right hand section of that curve, or the red section, if you remember correctly. You may also find that when you're stressed, you're maybe having less stress-free conversation. Something that I find really common in school is, to be studying and to be stressed, and maybe you run into a peer, or you're talking to, a friend on the phone or something like that. And then together you talk about this really stressful experience, this really stressful exam that you're both, again, really stressed about. These sorts of interactions don't necessarily help us relieve our stress when we're just, talking about how stressed we are with another, equally stressed person. And when you're feeling really stressed and tense and overwhelmed, it can also affect the way that we think. Um, It might change the way that we think about ourselves, and it can alter our perception of our ability to overcome what it is that we are stressed out about. Some negative or discouraging thoughts that can come up is maybe thinking, I'm not good enough, or this is horrible, this is unbearable, or I'm going to just flunk out of school. These things happen and they're pretty often interconnected. Let's say I'm feeling overwhelmed and I feel like I might flunk out. This causes me to withdraw more from my friends and also my classes. And then I feel extra tense and I can't really sleep at night, which makes me irritable, and so on and so on. Things like these happen pretty frequently, unfortunately. And these are just some examples of how stress can show up in different ways. And it may look different for you. This is, not something not the only way that stress manifests. It's helpful to know that when these signs and symptoms look it's helpful to know how these signs and symptoms show up for you. And it may look different for everyone, but it's important for you to recognize the signs so that you can recognize when you're feeling overwhelmed. Again, you want to address these issues before you have a breakdown or approach burnout. And once you recognize, what causes you to be stressed, then you can address those concerns rather than letting them, snowball or compound onto one another. Um, with that being said, what might cause students to feel this way, to feel overwhelmed? Can you think of anything maybe in your life or in your friend's life, or just what you know about being a college student that can cause overwhelming, sense of stress? Well, there is a lot of things. Here on your screen, there is a list of some common concerns that have to do with the circumstances of being a college student. Most students experience these at one point or another. There are definitely others, but these are some of the most common concerns that we see at counseling services. We see academic stress, difficult life experiences, maybe a loss of a loved one. Life doesn't really stop for school, and being a student is just one part of your identity. There's transitions or adjustment. College is a pretty unique environment and pretty unique now given the circumstances. And most students do face an adjustment period to college. Adjusting, to being responsible for yourself, managing your own time, your money, your nutrition, your sleep schedule, and so on. There's also, relationships, romantic, platonic, roommate relationships. Relationships aren't always easy. And in college, the dynamics may be different than what students are used to in the past. Um, and, most often there's new people and new people to, know and be around. So relationships is a big factor. Homesickness is also pretty common. It's real in a totally unfamiliar environment. It can be, jarring and uncomfortable at times. It's completely normal to miss home, even if you are an hour or two away. If you're feeling that kind of way, we also see, trauma or thoughts of suicide, alcohol and drug misuse, body image, and disordered eating concerns. So these, again, like I said, are not all of the student concerns, but they are the most common. So now I kind of have more questions for you to kind of ponder and think about. So, what are some de-stressing strategies that you right now are actively engaging in? Um, think about those. Do you think that they're necessarily healthy? Are they helping you out? How long have you been engaged with them? And that's a great follow-up question. What are some healthy ways that you manage your stress? If like maybe you're engaging in a certain activity that you're like, that's not necessarily the most, helpful. Staying up all night, binge watching Netflix, that's not the most healthy thing to do. So maybe what's another strategy that you do that is maybe healthier? And again, what are some not so healthy ways to manage your stress? I know when again, personal aside is Some not so healthy ways is when I'm really stressed, I really just want to just drown myself in potato chips. That's all I want, just the crunchy snacks at, my reach so that I can just keep, crunching away while I'm working away. And that's probably not the, healthiest thing to do. It's, potato chips aren't the most nutritious thing. So what are some healthy ways that I do to de-stress? I like to go outside and take breaks when the weather permits. Not so much when it's raining, that's a little more difficult, but definitely taking advantage of sunny days to break up my day and get away from the computer is a de-stressing strategy that I very much love. Now, some midterm motivation tips, the meat of the presentation. Um, I love tips and tricks, and the first one is organization, organization, organization. So, getting organized helps us stay ahead. And one way to do that is to keep a planner or an electronic calendar or both. I personally use both a planner and a calendar, specifically the calendar on my phone, for distinct purposes. My calendar acts, it tells me where I need to be and when. If I added, every to do thing on my list on there, it would just be too much, which is why I fall back on my calendar, on my planner, my bad, to kind of write down my to-do list, on a daily scale, then I can see it, on a weekly visual, and that helps me keep track of like daily tasks, weekly tasks, and it gives me a really good visual of what I need to get done. And I also get the satisfaction of crossing things out. Um, Another helpful thing that I do is use the reminders app on my phone for those reminders that I need to set at a specific time. I'm a huge fan of delegating, cognitive effort to apps when they benefit me because there's just so much to do that I can't possibly, keep everything just in my head. Um, Something, else that's really important and is helpful when doing, to-do lists is prioritizing your duties and your assignments. And you can do this by labeling items, maybe like A, B, and C. A with being the most important, B being important but can be put off for a little bit, and C maybe not time sensitive and can be put off until later. You can also color code your tasks if that's more your thing. Your important tasks are usually the ones that help you reach your goals. And working on these projects is on these um, kind of is a better use of your time and make you feel more productive at the end of the day. So try to prioritize those kind of like bigger ticket um, tasks on your to-do list. The next tip is to set goals. So setting goals goes hand in hand with organization, in my opinion. As you're organizing, oftentimes you're setting goals for yourself, especially if you're making to-do lists or daily to-do lists. You're identifying what needs to get done and hopefully by when. If it's a big project, maybe you're dividing it into smaller, more achievable chunks. And all of this is setting you up to creating SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goals. Um, and that's SMART goals is a whole other presentation in and of itself, but kind of framing your goals into SMART goals is a really great way to make sure that they are achievable and attainable and can get done. Another tip to setting goals is to set deadlines for yourself and keep them. And one way to do this, besides kind of trying to please yourself, is tell people about your goals. And this can help you people check up on you. So not only do you have, the motivation to meet your goal for yourself, but maybe, the pressure or, back the stress when stress is good to get your goals done. Another helpful tip for setting goals is maybe do a reward system for each part that you get done and reward yourself, when you achieve your goal. And this can be, getting a snack or, getting yourself dinner that you normally don't do. It could be, taking a longer break. Whatever it is that, setting, you know, um, a reward for yourself that you can, look forward to would be help you, set goals for yourself. Tip number 3 is to take care of yourself. So self-care is an important aspect of, obviously taking care of ourselves. I've noticed through various aspects of both my professional and personal life that self-care is one of the first things to go when we're busy or we're overwhelmed. There are different models out there that outline different dimensions of self care. And I like this one, the one that you see on the screen, because it takes into account 5 different dimensions. And self care is not, one size fits all. And all these dimensions definitely overlap with one another. So it's important to be intuitive on what's going on for you and listen to your body and what works for you and what makes you feel fulfilled. So some examples of maybe psychological aspects to self-care are, taking a break from your screen, going to therapy, writing in a journal, saying no to extra responsibilities and setting boundaries. These are, some examples that take into account your psychological self-care. Emotional self-care can look like spending time with others, staying connected to important people in your life, and finding things that bring you joy, and giving yourself praise and love and compassion. These are all emotional aspects to self-care. Physical aspects of self-care include, getting enough sleep, eating nutritious food, drinking plenty of water. And one of the most important, things is taking time off when you feel sick. When you feel sick, that's so much is going on in your body that you need to rest. You shouldn't try to push through the sickness to be productive. I think that's a pretty common belief and something that's often, you know, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like enforced, for lack of a better word. But I don't think it should be the norm. I think we're trying to fight that. Um, Spiritual aspects of self-care include, reflecting on your life, maybe meditating, making a spiritual connection. Spiritual, if that's what you're into. Religious, if you're into that aspect. Being optimistic and hopeful. And the last part is social dimension of self-care, and that's, making time to see your friends, whether, it be virtual or if they're in your bubble, seeing them in person. Schedule, you know time to, again, make, like, see loved ones, call your relatives, allow others to do things for you, and ask for help when you need it. I think that's also a really important aspect, is, asking for help. um, that's like a really, really good step to taking care of yourself, is asking for help, and for, like, asking for help from people that will be there to care for you. Tip number 4, reward yourself. And I kind of mentioned this before. So, rewarding yourself is so important. And this kind of starts by acknowledging that you accomplished a task. And I think that's so, so important, like acknowledging and kind of celebrating that you accomplished something. You did the work to get organized, to get, set goals. You worked hard. And the final piece is acknowledging your accomplishments. I'm a huge fan of that. Now, rewards can look differently for everyone. It doesn't mean, you should go on like a complete treat yourself mood, or, shopping spree for just opening up, a Word doc. but it can look something like maybe treating yourself again to dinner at the end of the week, or for all the hard work you put in. And it could also be, engaging in self-care, especially if you're still struggling to make self-care a non-negotiable priority. um, that's a good place to start with it. Next is boundaries, and this is a pretty, I think, typical difficult tip for some folks, especially female identified folks, um, and it can make people uncomfortable. Practice saying no, is important. Try to say yes to only things that are important to you, especially from my experience. As I got older in undergrad, started getting more involved with my major, with my department, with clubs and extracurricular activities. I wanted to jump on and do everything. And now, as I'm progressing through my doctoral program, I have so many opportunities that kind of promote my development as a professional, but it's impossible to do it all. So it's been hard, but it's definitely a lesson well learned to say yes to things that are really important to me. I think it's really important to be realistic about what you can and can't do. Like, don't take on too much. Part of being a professional, a leader, a student, is to make sure that you aren't putting yourself in a position where you're over promising but under delivering. um, and yes, so identify your boundaries and don't take yourself and your health for granted. Like, don't work yourself to a point where you're not taking care of yourself. And I came across this tweet a few weeks ago, and I thought it was so important and pretty timely to include in this workshop. And so this is Dr. Chantal Haley, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology at UT Austin. And I thought this was magnificent. And her tweet says, passing along some good advice. When entering grad school, a friend told me to write down the non-negotiable things that sustain my well-being and joy. She said, no matter how difficult and hard things get, never negotiate on your list. That list kept me going all 6 years. So I don't think this is, something that needs to be exclusive to graduate school. I think it's applicable to, students in pursuing their undergraduate degree as well. Or even people who are faculty or staff. Like, what are your non-negotiables? What are the things that you're just not willing to compromise? And I think that's really important, to keep track of when you're trying to take care of yourself during some really, really stressful times, because being in college is really hard. It is really difficult time for a lot of folks. So just sharing some wisdom of Dr. Haley. Now, with all that being said, now I just want to, review some services that are available at University Counseling Services to any currently registered students here at the University of Oregon. University Counseling Services has, consultations if you, have a student that you're concerned about, or you want to come and have a consultation regarding, any distress that you may be feeling. We have an after-hour support and crisis line, and that is our phone number. So after hours, our phone number is support crisis line. So if you call, you will always have someone to talk to. We also have a Let's Talk resource, which is typically, where a specialist, one of our specialists on staff, is at a satellite location. Now it's virtual, and they give informal consultations, one-on-one support for students. So there's no paperwork related to it. It's first come, first serve, and it's usually, a one-time meeting. And it's, usually for students who are wanting to get a feel for what therapy is like. Maybe they just want to talk to someone about their concerns or just check in about, something that's going on in their day. Um, we also have the Collegiate Recovery Center, which is for students who may be going through or dealing with substance abuse and like use and abuse, that's available for them. We have education and prevention, which is what you're actively engaging right now. This is a virtual recording of a wellness workshop that we offer during the year. So thank you for engaging with this. We have mental health campaigns and suicide prevention as well. Additionally, on our website, we have an online care kit, which goes back and lists common concerns, some coping strategies for those concerns. We have a really great Be Well blog, which people from our staff and therapists and graduate employees and even members of the undergraduate community have contributed to blog posts. We have well-being assessments online as well as the DuckTales podcast, which is a really great listen. And the last thing I wanted to share with you all is just some more information, contact information about the center. If you have any questions, concerns, please call the front desk at 541-346-3227. There is our website, counseling.uoregon.edu. And again, my name is Yahira Garcia, and my email is uccoutreachge@uoregon.edu. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, please feel free to shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to hear from you. Again, thank you for watching this workshop. I hope you learned something today.